We're going to take a look at some of the trending stories of the day. Josh Schafer is here to help us break it all down. And guys, first up, let's talk about the travel boom, or maybe lack thereof, pretty soon, because it might be signs that it could be fading here. There's new data compiled by Bloomberg, and it's taking a look at flights booked directly through airlines. And they found an interesting trend, and that's the fact that that number declined in the second quarter for 8 of the 10 largest domestic airlines here. So you got to ask yourself whether or not inflation is starting to catch up with consumers when it comes, obviously has in a lot of ways, when it comes to spending on travel, an area that we haven't necessarily seen any weakness in yet, at least for the airlines.
And the other interesting thing I saw in that article, Diane, was that they were pointing out that Alaska Airlines actually said that prices came down, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about even if demand does come down, right, and people have less money to spend, also if these airlines are charging less money for the flights, you would need more people to go on the flights. So I think that's kind of an interesting dynamic at play too. When you think about pricing power and just flight prices being a little bit cheaper, does that mean that all of a sudden we're going to start taking 2 flights again? I don't know. We're so used to these flights being expensive, right?
I mean, but it also, you wonder if it's a tale of two airlines. I mean, you had Delta Airlines doing great. I mean, they hiked their forecast. Delta and United both doing well, though United had some snafus recently. And it's certainly not helpful to the airlines when you have all the travel problems and the mess at the airport. I experienced that this weekend myself, due to weather, of course, so they can kind of blame it away. And that certainly doesn't, kind of help the travel picture. I did feel like this is anecdotally, that demand was still holding up right now. But again, we're talking about summer bookings, which are basically done.
Yeah, and it's very important to point out that this data actually tracks when they are booked rather than the airlines who actually obviously don't really take it into account until the actual flight, until you go on the flight, until that revenue is actually produced.
Right.
But prices, they're still above where we were in 2019. So they're down on a year-over-year basis. But 2022, the prices that we were looking at a year ago was astronomical. And not much improvement. But I think right now when people are feeling so pressured in almost every aspect of their life, if you've already gone on a few trips since COVID, maybe that pent-up demand story that we've been talking about for so long, that's going to fade. And I think this is the question, and we were struggling really to try to put the timeline on this of when we would actually see some impact when it comes to the travel names. And at least when you look at this index, and it doesn't include booking sites, it doesn't include corporate sales, we are starting to see some of that weakness.
Well, and we haven't even talked about business travel, right? When we're talking about flights overall and airlines overall.
It's been leisure travel.
Right, and that's something that Southwest flagged last week, right? Bob Jordan saying that basically they're not seeing business travel come back all the way to the extent that they thought they were going to, and they're not sure when it's going to come back. So then you think about that with maybe the general consumer demand that was maybe even a little bit higher than normal coming down, and you have that's a tough balance.
Yeah, the business travel will come back, but will it be enough to compensate for the reduction in consumer? Because revenge spending won't last forever.
I question if business travel is really going to come back across the board.
You don't think so? I think it will.
I don't know. You would have thought at this point maybe it would have, but some airlines are saying that they're very confident that we are going to get there if they haven't reached there yet. I'm still a bit skeptical, but we'll see.